Test.
Good morning, everybody. It's time to get started. I'd like to call this listening event to order, but before I do that, I would like to introduce a few key figures on the Senate Redistricting Committee. My name is Rick Wilburn, Senator from the 35th Senate District. I'm chairman. My vice chairman is President of the Senate, Senator Masterson, and the ranking member is Senator Sykes. Your committee.
Yes, I'm Representative Chris Cross. So I would like to Speaker, Mr. And then the Minority Leader, Sawyer, are both here. Thank you. The Vice Chair is Representative Ralph. On the committee, to his left.
Thank you, Representative Croft. Thank you, all those in attendance and committee members both here and online for participating in this process. This is just one step in the state's redistricting process with the goal of unprecedented transparency and public access. What you have consider the process for sign-up sheet here before the set the amount of time for each speech. Comfortable speaking. Thoughts are more accurate. We encourage this. Tribe and tribe. Here, this time around, challenging with, but it provides an opportunity to listen to communities. What things we must consider boundary lines will be Thursday, the 12th of August, of course, without the complete data set. Being released, complete data set most likely will be 30th. Those dates have been very. This listening tour is just one step in a very long process. I will turn the microphone over to Jordan from the Kansas Legislature Department. He will provide an overview of the entire process and address the data.
Good morning. My name is Jordan Milholland. I'm a senior research analyst with the Kansas Legislative Research Department, and I'm our lead facilitator for our redistricting team. This morning, I'll be presenting some information about the census and the redistricting process, just providing a brief overview. So I'll go ahead and get started. So some part of the census is always happening. It's part of a 10-year cycle, and federal law requires that states have the opportunity to participate in the census preparations. States are required to participate in order to get data for certain units of geography within the states. The data program provides states the opportunity to specify small geographic areas and to receive population totals of those areas for the purposes of redistricting. States must participate to receive population data for precincts within the state. The law also requires that states participate through a nonpartisan entity, and here in Kansas, it is through the Kansas Legislative Research Department. The data program is broken into 5 phases, and the program begins in the year ending in 5, so this cycle would have been 2015, and it'll end in the year 2025. Apologize here, my slides are not advancing. I'll go ahead and read off my slides here and see if maybe we can get the slides advanced while I'm speaking. So there are 5 phases of the program. Phase 1 is the block boundary suggestion project. Phase 2 is the voting district project. Phase 3 is delivery of census data. And we are right in between 2 and 3, as was just noted. We're expecting the first round of data to be delivered on August 12th. Originally, it had been August 16th, but they actually moved the timeline up just slightly. And those are legacy format files. Those files take a little bit more manipulation to get the data. And then by September 30th, we're expecting another set of files to be released. Phase 4 is confirmation of congressional and legislative district boundaries. And then phase 5 is feedback. So my next slide is about the 2020 apportionment. Earlier this year, the census released preliminary data, population totals for congressional apportionment. The 2020 total population of Kansas was the only number that was released to us. And that number is 2,937,880. And that is good for a gain of 84,762 persons since 2010. And just a note, Kansas did not gain or lose a congressional seat. My next slide is about the prior adjustment. So from 1988 to 2019, the Kansas Constitution and Kansas statute required adjustment for military personnel and college students. In 2019, the legislature passed a resolution, which was then on the November ballot, and it was approved by voters to remove that adjustment. So it removed the requirement that the population be adjusted for students and military members. Next, I'd like to speak a little bit about the 2022 session that's upcoming, just highlight the process of redistricting. So the legislature's role is to propose, vote on, and approve maps. And those are congressional, Kansas House, Kansas Senate, and Kansas Board of Education districts. The governor's role is to then sign or veto the bill or allow it to become law without signature. And then the Kansas Supreme Court must review and approve the maps, the state maps. For state and House and Senate maps, those bills are published in the Register, and then there's some legal requirements of the Attorney General, and then the court has 30 days to enter judgment after the Attorney General files the action to determine validity of the maps. And if the court says the maps are valid, the process is complete until the next cycle. And then otherwise, there are some other steps that occur if they are determined not to be valid. And finally, I just wanted to highlight for everyone here, on the KLRD website at ks.gov, we have a webpage for redistricting. On that page, you'll find reports from 2012. You can see all of the enacted maps and various reports that were run for those maps. I just want to highlight that similar reports will be run for the maps that will be coming up next year. Each of the maps is subject to a technical review, and as part of that process, we generate these reports. And then finally, if we're able to get it up here, my last slide has our contact information. As I mentioned, we have a webpage on the KLRD website, but you can also find staff contacts on there as well. And the best way to email us is redistricting@klrd.ks.gov. I believe that wraps up my presentation.
Hear me? No. Try to speak more. It's not transmitting, so I'll try to be more conscious of that. Thank you, Jordan. And are any questions of Jordan as it pertains to his presentation? Seeing none, we'll now turn to our first speaker. We have a number of speakers, so we will allot 5 minutes per speaker. The first one on my list is Jim Swim, a private citizen. Mr. Swim? Give you a warning when you have 2 minutes to go, 30 seconds to go. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you. It won't take that long, so I don't think you'll need to give me a red flag or anything. Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Jim Swim, a 60-year resident of Marysville and Marshall County. Thank you for the opportunity to supply testimony in support of transparent and fair redistricting. Community of interest issues are an important component to consider when drafting representative boundaries that impact individuals during a 10-year period. I am asking that we need a fair and nonpartisan process when these boundaries are developed that benefit and support communities living in those areas. I live in Marshall County, which is divided by Congressional District 1 and Congressional District 2. It is also divided by Kansas State Senate Districts 1 and 36. This breakup of our county creates challenges within our community of interest when issues arise that require attention at the state and federal level of government. Confusion regarding who your representative is and communicating with their office staff or directly with the representative tends to be problematic. Usually the response to an issue is you need to call the other representative. Dividing counties and municipalities should be avoided because this dilutes the voice and representation of these communities. Without detailed 2020 census data, I cannot make suggestions about the composition of fair districts at this time. No one, including yourselves, has had an opportunity to see detailed census results and identify what changes are required to maintain equality of population in our districts. I urge the committee to hold additional town halls after census data is available. Kansans can review that data and offer input as well. I would encourage that these meetings be accessible, available online, and announced with enough time to foster engagement. The current congressional and legislative maps were created by the courts and should, as possible, be altered as little as necessary to fulfill reapportionment shifts. The Kansas City Metro is currently whole within the Kansas 3rd Congressional District and should remain in a single district as residents have shared interest of representation. A nonpartisan process will help to protect community of interest representation. Please make this a priority when laying out the boundaries in Kansas. Thank you for your time on this important issue.
Thank you for being here. I now turn my attention to the Honorable Senator Hawk from Riley County.
Thank you. Welcome to Manhattan. Co-chairs Wellborn, ranking member, or co-chair Croft, ranking member Sykes and Burrows. See President Masterson, my president here, and I saw Speaker Reichman and the rest of the committee. Started my political career in this room, I think. A few years back on Student Senate at K-State, I got to see Martin Luther King over at Ahern, and Robert Kennedy announced his presidency bid, and I passed him on the stairway right behind us, going over to Ahern. So interesting life I've had here. I want to thank all of you for your work on what is a difficult task. I'll be giving testimony only orally, highlighting my district, new census facts that affect Riley County and my district, and I'm going to try to be objective. The last time you did this, I was on sabbatical. I lost an election in the House, and so you all did this, and I came back in, and I'm on my 3rd term now. I can't promise you after your work is done that I'll do 3 more terms. It's already 2 more than I promised my wife when I proposed. But I do promise to keep my youthful enthusiasm and my recently gained aging wisdom because of serving with all of you on this committee. I do consider all of you important colleagues and friends, and I care deeply about each one of you. Before I talk about the criteria, I want to tell a little story about K-State basketball and KU basketball. There was this guy called Wilt Chamberlain over at KU. My neighbor just told me this story the other night at a neighborhood gathering. He played for K-State. It seems that Tex Winter got concerned about Wilt. Wilt was a freshman. They couldn't play varsity, and they found out they could alley-oop the ball on an inbounds pass over the goal, and Wilt would dunk it. So Coach Winter went in and said, we need to change that rule. Wilt also had another habit. He didn't shoot free throws very well, but he could start above the free throw circle, jump in the air, and dunk the ball. Counted because there wasn't a rule about breaking the plane. Had to change that rule. So I challenge you to make sure that this process is fair to all of us, particularly us K-Staters. So, community of interest. Previous speaker talked about that. Examples of issues on that are ethnic, racial, and economic, but I want to also add cultural and educational, particularly for my district. Social, school districts, housing commonalities, urban, ag, and industrial, living standards, work opportunities, transportation access, and of course, political interest. In my district, in Riley County, it's 28% Democrat, 40% Republican, 30% independent. In my Clay County district, it's 10% Democrat, seeing what we're up against. So what's changed and what might change that affects this committee? Senate Bill 1605 that was just mentioned, or Senate concurrent resolution, constitutional amendment, changes counting students and military personnel in my district, particularly Riley County. That's going to be potentially up to 10,000 additional people that's going to be in that census, which I think will affect how we divide the current district that I'm in up. And it also applies to Lawrence, I think slightly more than 10,000. So just to let you know, my district is the 5th largest according to 2012 redistricting at 71,540. The largest is 71,665. So what is Manhattan Community of Interest? It's a great place to live. So is Riley County, so is Geary County and Clay Center. In 2018, Manhattan was deemed the second most livable place to live. So what are our economic interests here? K-State, Bill Snyder did wonderful things for us. A $914 million budget, probably $2 to $3 billion economic impact. Fort Riley is the other big thing for us to keep in mind. A $1.8 billion budget, $3.9 billion economic impact. We just built NBAth that will be coming online in the next year to year and a half. We have a lot of people who work here. Fort Riley has 15,000 people on post. In terms of people there, 5,000 civilians. Mentioned NBAth, we have commercialization at K-State. We have a wonderful Chamber of Commerce here that recruits new business. Agriculture is not as a big an industry in this area as it is in the state. Riley County has $274 million in production, 1,800 jobs, 4.2% of the workforce. I entice you to do your difficult task. Don't make any of those Wilt Chamberlain errors. I expect the result of your work, and I have high standards for every one of you. I was a teacher. I want to make sure that we have good government, productivity, and success for every citizen in Kansas. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Senator Hawk.
Oh, one more thing. Fort Riley has a great motto: no mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great, duty first. Your second challenge.
I now turn to Linda Uthoff, League of Women Voters in Manhattan, Riley County. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Linda Uthoff, and I'm a representative of the League of Women Voters of Manhattan, Riley County. We thank you for this opportunity to address this Kansas House and Senate Redistricting Committee. As you know, for nearly 100 years, the League of Women Voters of Kansas has encouraged the informed and active participation of citizens in government and has influenced public policy through education and advocacy. The League never endorses candidates or political parties. We are here today because few elements of our representative democracy have as large an impact as the shaping of our congressional and legislative districts. Redistricting has an impact on every Kansan. As such, we are here to support a redistricting process that is informed by wide public input, is transparent, and results in fair maps for the state of Kansas. So the League of Women Voters of Manhattan and Riley County supports developing guidelines and criteria for forming congressional and legislative districts, and the use of such guidelines and criteria to assess the fairness of those results, ending the practice of including partisan and incumbent home seat information in the redistricting database. League of Women Voters U.S. redistricting position of June 2016 calls for legislatures to, and I quote, explicitly reject protection of incumbents through such devices as considering an incumbent's address and preferential treatment for a political party through such devices as considering party affiliation, voting history, and candidate residence. The League also supports expanding the listening tour to include additional locations, clear and timely communication of schedules and procedures, increased transparency of the process, and access for the public outside of working hours, and for those people with diverse languages or physical abilities. We support conducting a series of listening sessions after the census data is released and reviewed, so communities of interest can address the impact of those changes. And finally, the League advocates adopting new districts early in the 2022 session to ensure smooth preparation for the 2022 election. The League of Women Voters of Manhattan-Riley County believes in a redistricting process that results in fair maps for candidates. Your careful consideration of these points will be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for your attention and time.
Thank you very much. Speaker on the agenda, Tucker Graff, private citizen. Is Mr. Graff here? Welcome, Mr. Graff.
So I'm going to be pretty short. Everybody here has kind of hit already the things that I wanted to say. I kind of wanted to just talk about this in terms of a private citizen and kind of the frustration that we see through the process. And there was one line in particular, I promise I'm not trying to come at anybody when I say this. There was one line at the beginning of this meeting that was unprecedented transparency and public access. And I just disagree with that. Back in 2012, we had 14 meetings over 4 months. So just compared to that standard, we're having 14 meetings in 5 days. All of them during working hours. Not to attack anybody in the crowd, but I'm 33 years old and I'm very easily probably one of the youngest people here. The only reason I can come is because I'm a non-traditional student who just got back from an internship and haven't started my real-time job yet. So I have a lot of issues with when these meetings were scheduled, when they're being held. And you know, I struggle to, this is kind of a niche topic, redistricting in general, census data, it's very number heavy. It's, I mean, we all know the issues with gerrymandering. I don't want to stand here and talk about that. The problem with it is, I struggle to understand how we can recommend fair maps or what we think you should do before the census data has even been released. I don't know why we're having these meetings yet. And I understand that it puts a time crunch on you later on if we wait to do everything after the census data is released. But that's not something that we can control. They release the data when they release it, and we have to draw the maps after that. So I really struggle to understand why we're compacting all these meetings into this 1 week when the data hasn't been released. We have plenty of time to have these meetings still. We can spread this out and take plenty of time to go through everything and get input and have additional meetings, hopefully, after the census data has been released. So, you know, Senator Hawk and everyone else kind of hit the points that I wanted to hit about making sure that, you know, just Kansas hasn't grown a lot over the last decade. We're a relatively slow growing state. So hopefully we keep the districts as similar as they are now as possible, just adjust them as little as we need to. And hopefully we don't, I understand this is a Republican state. I grew up in Western Kansas. Republicans are everywhere out there, and that's great. We need a diversity of opinion and stuff like that, but I understand that the impulse is going to be because we have a supermajority in the state legislature that we can just kind of ignore Governor Kelly's veto and just push whatever maps forward we want. But I hope that we do make an effort to try to stay as bipartisan as we can, come up with maps that make everybody happy throughout the process. So thanks for your time, and particularly I wanted to thank everybody who managed to come today because this was not at a very convenient time. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Graff. The next person I have on the Terry Banica, citizen. Thank you. Marcia Tannehill, citizen. Written only. Yes, thank you, Ms. Dan.
Thank you. I just want to echo what the gentleman just said. This is the most inconvenient time for people to be here. It is not open and transparent, as you have just stated. If it was, there would be more meetings and there would be many more opportunities for other citizens to be here. So I really think this was very inconvenient, and I think it was done perhaps purposefully. Thank you.
Greg Worst. Pass. Representative Carlin.
Sorry, I thought the list was longer. Thank you for coming today. Nice to see everyone. And I really appreciate the effort that you're going to put into this process. K-State is a community of interest and it affects the whole state, so we're happy to have you here. I regret that this listening meeting has taken place before the public has the census data. I was looking forward to actually, really working through numbers myself, and I just don't have them. Recently, maybe 2 years ago, I read that in this Council of State Governments newsletter that Kansas had lost 87,000 people between 2010 and 2017. I don't know if that's accurate, and I don't know how it's going to look right now, but I think that is a major population loss that we need to be considering. The hearings were not publicized in advance so that people could arrange to take off work. And the data is just not there for us. Thank you very much for coming. That's really the only point I have to make, and I think it's been made by many. I know you will do your best with the numbers, but we want to participate. I hope you'll come back to Manhattan in the evening soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Carlin. Some of you have previously signed up and into more lengthy public comments as of yesterday. If anyone wants to provide public comment later, please send comments to Redistricting, klrd.ks.gov. There's no cutoff date for the public to send in their comments. The legislative website does provide instructions for providing the comments, and we do ask that you follow those instructions. We want to thank all of you for your input today, helping the legislature and those committees achieve unprecedented transparency and public access. This was the first stop in a 14-stop listening tour that includes Manhattan, Salina, Hayes, Colby, Garden City, Dodge City, Hutchinson, Wichita, Chanute, Pittsburgh, Overland Park, Kansas City, Kansas, Lawrence. This tour is not the only time for input. As I mentioned earlier, live streaming, and there are other transparent processes due to the modern era of e-commerce. Mentioned earlier, submission of welcome, formal hearings and testimony return for the session. We're working through difficulty after the tour before the next session begins in January. Thank you again, and I will give a chance for any more testimony orally. Seeing none, I do want to highlight the fact yes, you have 5 minutes, sir. Please, please.
Sir, it's not, sir,
Sir.
it's the people online that can't hear you. Just come to the mic.
My name is Judson Jones, and I live in Pottawatomie County, Kansas. And I live on the east side of the river, next to Manhattan. I heard about this meeting Friday. I thought to myself, should I take the time today to go up and see these people, or should I just blow this one off? I decided I would come here today, and something upset me. The first thing right out of the bag. Is this a formal governmental meeting? Question, is this a formal governmental meeting?
Sir, this is a
I live in
listening.
Pottawatomie
listening
County.
area.
Is it a meeting, though?
I live on
Representative
the
of the
side of the
government.
river next to
Yes
Manhattan.
or no? That's an easy question. Then you should have opened it with the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States, folks. This is a governmental meeting, and that's common and courtesy for everybody like me who's a 40-year veteran. Don't forget us. We know what we're looking at, and we know what we see. My reason for coming here today was to say that all this talk about nonpartisanship is wrong. Kansas is a Republican state, has been a Republican state all of my life. The winning party gets the opportunity to pick who and how they get represented. Don't consider a nonpartisan activity is going to be fair. It's not going to be fair because the nonpartisanship gets put away when people walk out the door. Everybody knows that. So just do a real good job of making sure that the balance is fair. I don't care where the lines are drawn. I feel sorry for the people in Marysville, but just be sure that the lines are drawn fairly so that everybody has the opportunity to be represented. That's why I came today to say that. Thank you.
Sir, may I get your name again, please? Thank you very much. Before we wrap up, I do, yes.
So I'm just an average citizen. I don't have the civic.
Would you state your name?
My name is Martha Mather, voter, citizen. I don't have the civic credentials of other people here. I don't have a detailed knowledge of how you're going to do your business. But I would like to say I'm a very committed American. I'm very committed to doing the right thing for my neighbors and for the people of Kansas. You are smart people. You know what the right thing is to do. And I ask you to put aside politics and do the right thing for everybody in Kansas and make sure there is fair representation. Yes, you have the power to have a very biased representation, but please think about the country and think about the citizens of Kansas, and don't think about right and left. Think about right and wrong, and please do the right thing for the citizens of Kansas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other conferees or citizens who wish to speak? I do want to highlight 3 written testimony. Alex Brace, private citizen, Scott Cole, private citizen, and Catherine Swinson, private citizen, all have submitted written testimony. Now I want to give the ranking member of our committee opportunity to make a brief statement. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to say thank you to K-State for hosting us today and for all of the private citizens who have joined us. I think I speak for everyone on both the House and the Senate side that we want to help. We want your help in developing districts that will lead to healthier connections to the residents, a stronger representation to better public policy for all Kansans. So this is just the first step in this process. My staff has contact sheets for information, for you to reach out. We don't want this to be the ending conversation with you. We want you engaged in the process with us. So thank you for showing up today, and stay engaged and keep us accountable. Thank you.
I also would like to give the President of the Senate, Vice Chair of the Senate District, make a brief statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just remind everyone, this is just the beginning of the process, and I was actually present 10 years ago to the events. Does not necessarily bring out the rest of us as citizens, right, both sides, and we bring our talking points, and that's okay. This is just the beginning. This is unprecedented, because I was here 10 years before that. This is online. Every Kansan can submit written testimony. It's a meeting. Meetings at 6 o'clock, which last time I checked was transportation. When you get to certain, it is not possible to do every side of that. See, the intentions of this committee are to truly have open, unencumbered input from the citizens of Kansas and to produce fair and accurate. So I just want to remind people, these types of processes, because it's so parochial, bring tensions. That is the intentions of this committee. Thank you for being here.
In closing, I want to thank K-State setting up this great facility. Proud to say I'm a alum. Thank you again for the committee members. Thank you for Manhattan, Kansas. We'll be now adjourning to going to Salina. Ends at 1:30 in Salina. So thank you and have safe travels.